I'm going to be drunk before we get going. No.
So it's a normal episode then.
Alrighty, because this episode of Getting Tabled is brought to you by Valhalla Hobby. Use code TABLE to get 5% off any order over $100, one use only. Big shout out and thank you to our patrons for supporting us. Please consider joining for only $2 a month. You can check out the episode early and listen to us when we record live.
Brought to you by some guys on the internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
With your hosts Jason the Bruce,
You guy!
George the Yang,
I hope you are all entertained by my inaptitude.
Jason aka Major Socks.
We've been doing this and talking about various stuff. One of the stuff.
Now sit back, relax, and get tabled.
Hello, future people, and welcome to episode 147 of Getting Tabled with your host. He didn't get a face tattoo like we thought he would, the Bruce.
No, but I have come from an alternate universe where this is apparently my evil self. You know, because I have a goatee at the moment.
Oh, the mirror universe.
Yep, I've come from the mirror universe. Yep, that's it. We also have with us, he's the main man, he's the reason that everybody comes. I think, maybe. Does anybody know he exists? Who is this again? Oh, that's right, it's Major Socks.
Yeah, sorry folks, I'm a little different today. Computer issues with my desktop, so we'll just have to deal with the PC and or my laptop. Sorry.
I'm just glad you trimmed your nose hair.
And we also have with us George, because he's here. But that's okay. We'll make up for the fact that he's here.
Hi guys.
What flavor crayon did you eat today, George?
The chartreuse.
Nice.
Very nice.
Good choice.
So in this episode, we're not doing an indie, but we are having a look at a horrible killer's shack. We're having a look at some lovely Bushido minis. G-Dub are doing the whole mini of the year again. And WizKids are doing Star Trek, but we'll get to that later.
Yep.
Let's get into the news.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
Why are we talking about an event? It's not events yet. That's because there's a mini involved in this one. So first and foremost, the date for Salute next year has been announced. It's happening on the 12th of April, which is a Saturday. For the first 5,000 tickets, there is this really awesome Napoleonic miniature that you get, which is just all kinds of cool. Now, this is not the first time that I've done this. There's usually a bonus thing for the early birds, but I just think this is really, really nice. Also, I like the book, but
he looks a little tall. They should make him shorter if it's going to be Napoleonic.
You do know that that's actually fiction, right? Napoleon was actually fairly tall for his day.
He's short.
No, that is English. Yeah. That is English propaganda.
And who writes
You're an
propaganda?
American believing English propaganda. How dare you? You should hand your citizenship now.
Hey. We gave them that extra L for canceled, so.
I don't know how old that joke is, but I've never heard that before. That's brilliant.
You almost did a spit take there.
I did.
You almost did.
Oh, dear. So there you go. Salute's on sale. If you look down at the bottom, you get to see who's attending. It's all the usual people. So we've got Forge Master, we've seen TT Combat, Deep Cut Studio. It's all of the people that you would expect in that area of the world. So, yeah, should be good. We will come back to that during events. Let's move on to some mutant stuff. So,
Bad Roll Games. Do you own stock in this company, Bruce? Bad Roll Games?
But it's only the second time we've talked about them.
Yeah, but you should own stock in them because bad roll.
Bad rolls.
True. That's actually that's a good point. But I'm not the only person in the world that rolls dice poorly. I think is the problem with your analogy. Anyway, so Punk Apocalypse. We talked about this before. It has been a little while since we looked at it. We're starting with one of three. We've got this really cool looking mutant. It kind of feels like... what was the cartoon that started as a horror movie where you've got the sludge monster guy with the mop?
Toxic Avenger.
It feels very Toxic Avenger to me.
It feels very Toxic Avenger meets the Shark. You know, where they had like the big shark heads and their muscle. I can't remember what that. But just that face, it gives me kind of that shark feel to the face. But definitely with the Toxic Avenger, especially with the foot on the 55-gallon drum, where you find toxic chemicals.
I can't help but wonder who owns the tentacles, because they're not coming from him.
The swamp does.
Okay. What were you going to say, Socks?
No, just the toxic waste bearer, like George was saying. I mean, it gives that 80s kind of comic vibe, too.
I just want everybody at home to know that when Socks stares into the camera like that, that's the scariest that he's ever been. And I'm still laughing.
Yes.
Next up, we've got Piston, who, personally, I'm just going to say this guy's straight out of the Captain America movie, the first one.
Oh, yeah, he's the bowler guy with, but he's got mechanical punching apparatuses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of feels like he's punching with what should be the American eagle. It's just missing the actual eagle head on top.
Well, first of all, he's obviously very British because that was much more of a British style. And two, the chop handlebar mustache like that. Yeah. What I think is kind of an interesting aesthetic is his little punching fists. They look like the guards that you would see on a steam engine to clear the tracks.
Oh, no, I know what I'm thinking of. It's not the American Eagle. It's Judge Dread Shoulders.
Oh, yeah. I can see that
It's
too.
the Judge symbol.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm thinking of the American Eagle type thing, because it's a spin-off from that. And ironically, is an English thing. Because there are English comics originally. This is probably my favourite of the three, personally. Also, it kind of feels like they've spent 3 times as much time on that face than they have everything else. The face is so clean, and then everything else isn't.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. That face does look pretty fantastically well done. And then finally, we have a shaman, and this is screaming a character from the Netflix Predator movie Prey.
That's a good shout.
That's totally a Predator mask, and if you look at it's a shaman and whatnot. Where was Prey? It was indigenous peoples fighting against the Predator. This totally looks like a throwback to that when they captured the mask.
See, to me, I was looking at this and I was thinking Diablo.
Yeah.
I mean, at the risk of stating the obvious, this is like an apocalyptic type, Mad Max-ish type world-ish thing where it's kind of like everything old is new again, and it's somebody reinventing old stuff in what they consider a modern age.
Sure. Yeah.
But I really like what they're doing here. I mean, there's a couple more down the bottom here on the Shaman page where they're showing previews of other, like, their best sellers. The hardened guy with the shotgun is just magnificent. Like, that's not a newer one, that is an older sculpt, hence bestseller. But the stuff they're making here is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, the Crazy Mel, it totally is Mel Gibson from the Mad Max series.
There's no way that's accidental.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't choose to do a different name. Like, they could have, like, said Crazy Gibbo or something.
Well, so it's Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's not the character's name, though. There's the...
Yeah, true. I was just thinking they could have hidden that a little better.
They could have.
It's got a cute doggo.
No, because that's an Aussie, and no.
Yeah, it's a cute doggo. It looks like. I mean, it's basically it's a classic Australian sheepdog, really. I don't think
Yeah, that's why it's
called.
that's why it's not cute, because it's an Aussie.
Yeah, no, you're just wrong.
No,
It's okay.
Aussie shepherds.
George, you're allowed to
Aussie
be
shepherds. Aussie shepherds are jerks.
It looks like a blue terrier, not a shepherd. It's too small to be a shepherd. Anyway, let's move on. It could be anything. It realistically, in that world, it's probably a mutt. Like,
Pokemon!
There's
I
no
was gonna
way
say,
that you have... Yes! Yeah, moving on. So, we've looked at Warp Miniatures a couple of times. Normally, they're doing, like, really, really cutesy stuff, right? But this is definitely not Pokemon. It's definitely not. I mean, look at how creepy these things are. I mean, yes, Pokemon's really creepy as well if you start thinking about it. But these are really cool. The first thing I thought when I saw this is, why has nobody else done this yet? Why is there not a Pokemon game? It feels like a really easy sell, right?
So, I have two thoughts about this. So there was a game I backed. I pulled out of it. It was very Pokemon-esque, and it was like a arena, like a Super Fantasy Brawl kind of thing.
Yeah.
Made by Awaken Realms, and there was influence, like you could tell they were Pokemon-esque, but they didn't look like Pokemon. I would not be surprised if these guys get a cease and desist.
I actually had thought of that as well.
The Bulbasaur and Squirtle, those look way too much like they've just been pulled and sculpted like the originals.
Bulbasaur specifically is probably the worst of them for that. Like, Squirtle does look a little different. Wartortle is completely different. But Squirtle may as well just be... It's not Squirtle. Bulbasaur may as well just be Bulbasaur.
Like, the Pikachu face is extremely different.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of similarity there. Like, it's like that one company where they were doing that Elder Army, and it was like, it looked really good, and we're like, it's not enough, and then sure enough, a week later, they were shut down.
Yeah. This is also a property that belongs to one of the most notoriously litigious companies in the world. Like, they are very quick off the mark on this stuff. To the point where this is a lot closer to Pokemon than Power World is. And I will say for the record that I still don't think they have a legal leg to stand on with that. And they're still getting in trouble for it. And, as in, I think that Pokemon don't have a leg to stand on there. And they still seem to be getting away with trying to take them to court. I don't know, I really like what they're doing here. But Pokemon's also one of those things that everybody kind of rips off at this point.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Which is amusing, given that Pokemon is also a rip-off of Digimon. And nobody ever seems to want to talk about that. Digimon came first.
It did it? Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I could say is you know, as everything is a knockoff or a copy of something.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
I mean, take Led Zeppelin, right? One of the greatest bands of all time, but there's stuff where it's like, oh, they were influenced by this. This sounds like this. They kind of ripped this off. Like, you know, it's happened in the past. It's still happening now, and it's going to continue to happen. We're not going to get around it. Legally speaking, here in the U.S., the law says you have to make it 10% different in order for it to be unique enough.
I think this is close to 10%. I don't know if it's quite there.
That Bulbasaur is not 10%. That Bulbasaur is 100%.
The Venusaur is not either. It just has a couple of spikes on it.
Yeah, it looks good.
I quite like I think the Blastoise you can get away with. The Charizard you definitely can get away with.
Yeah, the Charizard
is 100%. Charizard is just a dragon anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's much different from the other one. The Blastos, the face is different, but the shell with the cannons, that's still pretty on the nose.
But
yeah.
You know what? I actually have a bigger problem with the Blastoise, which is that it looks like it's wearing a mask.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
It looks like it's wearing somebody else's face, and it's really creepy.
Do you think it's John Travolta or Nicolas Cage?
It kind of feels a bit like that, yes. I think that's just a fault of them. That they've messed up with the painting a bit.
At the end of the day, these sculpts look great. These are awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's enough of a change to keep the lawyers off the doorstep.
The fact that it's a Patreon 3D printing thing might be enough to save them. It's not a Kickstarter where they're going to raise millions of dollars. But, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Nintendo have been known to go after smaller fish, including people that literally make no money. So, let's talk about a company we haven't touched on for quite some time. Atomic Mass Games. No particular reason. I just haven't talked about them for a while. Because, honestly, I really like the new ones that they're coming out with this week. We've got Yondu and Nova. I've got to say, not a huge fan of Nova as a character. It's just never been one that stuck with me. Yondu I love in the movies. I didn't know him in the comics. But this is...
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah. To me, this feels like it's a nice mix between the pictures I've seen of the comics and of the movie. It's not inspired... Well, it doesn't feel like it's inspired specifically by one or the other. It's kind of a mix. Nova's straight out of the comics, but he's not in the movie.
So... And I will say this, Kevin and all of them over at the Marvel, cinematic universe. There's some times where it's just they've hit things on the nail, hit the nail on the head so hard. Like the core three, Roger, Stark, Thor.
Yeah.
The casting on those, and then pulling that look straight from the comic book into the movie was just great. Yondu, they did another great job with that. Like, there's some where it's just... And it's so hard, like... You can look at this and be like, this is more comic book just based on the way he's dressed, but... Also,
he looks like... the movies, too.
Yeah, he looks just straight from the movies. Yeah, it's so good.
See, especially with the early MCU, there was a lot of characters that were just straight off the cuff. Thor is another one. There are other ones that are reinvented in a way that are perfect as well. Especially when you start to remember how poorly a lot of things have been reinvented in the past. I mean, at the time, X-Men was like the pinnacle of reinventing something, right? I know people like to look back on that now and kind of go poo-poo on it. But at the time, it was considered to be a very smart move. I'm trying to think of a good example in the movies that was reinvented, but...
I will just give the entire Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'll give one. Hawkeye.
Okay, yeah, that was a great reinvention, actually. Yeah.
The comic book... It worked in the TV show. That TV show is better than it's given credit for. But there's no way the purple outfit in the comics would have worked originally.
Yeah, I don't think Jeremy Renner would have appreciated that too much. Now, his protege in the Hawkeye miniseries, the purple looked good on her.
Well, I think the thing that worked with that is by the time they came around to doing the outfit, the character had earned it. It's kind of like if you with Wolverine, and I know a lot of people won't like hearing this. If they had have done the yellow suit with Wolverine from the start, the movie would have been laughed out of the cinema.
Absolutely.
It's just fact. But technology has improved since then, which made the costume better. Cameras have improved since then, which means it'll show up on film better, and it wouldn't have back in the 90s/2000s. But it worked because the character had earned it, as opposed to it would like at the time when X-Men came out, comic book movies were considered a joke. Blade was successful because most people didn't know it was a comic book movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we live in a different world now. So, but yeah, people don't like hearing about that because how dare it not be right?
Yeah.
We've gone slightly
next on the
off
list,
topic here.
my Marvel Crisis Protocol. We have Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't know who Elsa Bloodstone is personally. I would guess that she's connected with Man Thing, and that's probably why I don't know who it is, because I'm not really a Man Thing person. I prefer Swamp Thing, which I think is the original, but I could be wrong on that. I know that one was inspired by the other, but I don't remember which way. It's comics. They're all inspired by one another. It doesn't matter. I do like the minis, though.
Elsa Bloodstone enemies: Azazel, Blob, Carnage, Carolyn LeFay. So she's part of the
So she's part of
the
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. I will say this, and I'm going to raise this because this is a criticism that we've thrown at Atomic Mass Games a few times now. That's a female pose that's different.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not one of the three poses. It's
No.
completely different. That instantly makes me wonder if there's been more that's actually been different, but I'm not going to go and look that up now. Of the four reveals, I think Yondu takes it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good character that the movies have brought such a light to.
Yeah.
And it's so well done. Like the translation of bringing him from comic book to movie, and then this interpretation is good for both of them. Because I know some of the minis in this game, it's like they'll either go with the comic book version or they'll go with the movie version, depending on what is better or more popular. And so,
and Lord knows, because the game is big enough at this point, if you don't like a miniature and the way it's been sculpted, there's at least 3 other versions out there illegally on the third-party market. And I'm not using illegally out of context here. All of these third-party Patreons doing it are breaking the law, and it's all copyright. They just get away with it because they don't make enough money for it to be worth Disney chasing. Up next,
We got a Boxcar Shack, huh?
Yeah. So again,
Looks-
we haven't looked at this company for a while. I love Blacksite Studio. It's just that there hasn't been a lot of late. So yes, we have a Boxcar Studio. Boxcar Willie is one of their original expansion villains. So there's a mission where you originally come across him at a train, and he's trying to kill you, and you're trying to get away from it. And the second mission is you trying to escape his shack, which is what they've created here. And it's just really cool. Like, the mission is that all of the windows have been boarded and shut up, and you can't get out, so you actually have to kind of fight your way out of the shack and survive before he kills you. It's a really, really cool mission idea. I haven't actually played it, but I really want to. And this is just really good. Like, it just feels right.
Blacksite Studios and their terrain, like okay, there's a lot of terrain companies out there. TT Combat, Warsenal, right? Is that
Teresa.
it?
Warsenal, Ceresa Studios, yeah.
Yeah. Blacksite Studios is like, I will say they are top tier. Just because their stuff looks so good. They're one of the OGs. Like, it comes painted.
Yeah.
So
they're not the OG. Foreground is the OG, but they also run out of business.
I said they're one of the OGs it's like, I feel like they are the example, and everyone is just trying to catch up to them. And I quite literally mean everyone.
As far as pre-painted terrain is concerned, I'm not counting screen printing here because that's a different discussion. I think as far as pre-paints is concerned, I don't think anybody else is as good at it as Blacksite at this stage. I don't know if that's a controversial take or not. I think as far as pre-paints is concerned, I don't think anybody else is close. Back in the day, there was a lot of people that had a lot of really good things to say about Foreground. Unfortunately, they went out of business by going into a different market and doing some people dirty, depending on who you ask. But Blacksite Studios have not only held their ground as far as the quality that they've been doing, but they've been very, very careful about how they do business. Like they're very, very specifically trying not to exploit systems and be one of these companies that just goes to crowdfunding every 3 minutes. That they have now gone to Kickstarter once, and it was because they were going into a completely different industry. They were doing a role-playing game. So that is a risk, and it is the reason why Kickstarter exists. You guys covered that on an episode that I wasn't here. I'm kind of confused why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
I really, really like this. This is another one of those things that, like boxcar shacks are very much an American thing, right? Like maybe South America as well, I don't know, but I've only ever seen this in movies in the US. It's definitely not a thing that I've seen done here. Container houses I've seen here, but even then, it's because they steal the idea from America.
Yeah.
I really like this. Moving on. We have
GTC
Bushido.
Studios.
Yep. So, first things first. The lovely Spider faction that we were looking at about 6 months ago is now available for pre-order, technically alongside these. I haven't brought them up because we discussed it like 6 months ago. However, this is a new character, so I'm bringing it up. So, Hannah the Grace in Murder. I'm not entirely sure how Murder is Grace. But, yeah, sorry, the Grace of Murder. So, she's so good at murder that it's graceful, I guess? In the painted version of this... where is it? In the artwork, sorry. The back of the, well, the big fat bit at the back of the spider, whatever that's called, where the stinger is, reminds me very much of the logo for the faction. It's not the same, it just reminds me of it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, because like normally when somebody does like a creepy spider type monster, it's almost always one of two things. It's either a black widow, or it's a redback spider, which looks a lot like a black widow.
And I believe that's called the abdomen.
Oh, is that the abdomen? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And they're called spinnerets, not stingers.
Are they?
Yeah, that's the spiders bite with their teeth and they spin web with their spinnerets in their abdomen.
I'm just thinking of the... I guess I'm thinking of because of the spider in Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'm smart.
That's why he eats crayons, folks. A quick look at the stats. Like you're looking at 19, so 19 Rice, she's very much going to be an elite type character. I'm not going to go into all of the stats, but just giving you a quick look. 3 in melee, 3 in ranged, so yeah, looks like this is going to be quite fun. We also have... Oh, actually, what's she made out of? I don't see. So I'm guessing that means that it'll be metal. Normally they specifically say if it's going to be a different material. Next we have the Shiho Shirak, who is very much another one of these farmer type characters. This reminds me of the quote-unquote bad guy in Deadpool 2 because of the little stuffed rabbit that it has on its belt. I don't know why he has a stuffed rabbit on his belt, but I really like it. There's obviously a story there somewhere.
So actually, he reminds me of the main hero character of Ninja Scroll.
Oh, yes. You're 100% on the money with that. That's a really good shout. Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen Ninja Scroll.
I had to go Google it, like what the name was, because I forgot what the name was, but I remember watching it. But if you look at the main character of Ninja Scroll,
Yeah.
that's this guy.
No, you're 100% right. And just for the record, just Ninja Scroll. Don't bother watching the sequels because all of the sequels suck.
Yeah.
You're right. That is... Yeah, you're right.
I know I'm right.
We also have Kenichi Gimu for the Silvermoon Syndicate, who might actually be genuinely the most innocent-looking person in the entire faction. Apart from the scar. Like, he's just a guy with a grin, right? I mean, yes, it's a very mischievous grin, and he looks like he's somebody that's probably a lot nastier than he's trying to make out like. No, I come in peace, honest! 3 seconds before he kills you in cold blood.
Right.
It's the vibes I'm getting.
Yeah, he definitely has the
Innocent.
he strikes me as he's always in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets blamed for everything kind of look. Like, no, I only cut all their heads off because they attacked me. I didn't attack them.
No. This is just for display. Honest. So for those that don't know Bushido's lore very well, the Silvermoon Syndicate is essentially the local mafia. That is the thing that they go for. That's why I'm making the remark about how he's arguably the most innocent-looking person in the faction. And that is also why he has that arguably sadistic-looking smile. And it would come down to how you paint him realistically. If you look at the artwork on the card, like, he's very comfortable with the way that he looks. It's nice. Also, he has pocket sand, so you can use that meme.
You can at least see socks since, it won't mess up your recording and stuff.
Yeah.
Am I being taunted?
No, I found a photo of the guy from Ninja Scroll.
Oh, right.
It is quite literally the spitting image. Next we got a pretty cool looking, I'm guessing lion character.
It's either a lion or it's a tiger. I'm not No, it's a snow leopard.
Yeah,
go to the card, it says leopard.
The card.
Oh, okay.
So Master Shaolin...
It's what's his face from Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name, but that's who I thought of too.
Yeah.
Quick, who does his voice?
I know this and I don't remember. Who filled my head full of lies? It's that guy,
It's
right?
the guy that... no, it's...
And then you abandoned me. It's the guy that was supposed to be the Dragon Warrior and then wasn't.
He plays Elsewhere in Deadwood.
Ah! He's an awesome actor.
I'm trying to look up his name.
Folks, if you haven't seen the show,
it's Ian
Deadwood?
McShane.
Ian McShane, yeah. If you haven't seen Deadwood and you like Wild West stuff, it's top tier HBO. Like most HBO shows, you have to get about halfway through the first season before you really get where this is going. It's worth the investment. It's very good.
But so this is Tai Lung, voiced by Ian McShane and Bushido. That's who this is.
Yeah.
So this is a master character. I'm not 100% sure if this is one that was inspired by an actual player or not. It's certainly possible that it might be, but I don't know. Bumping my microphone. Like most of the master characters, he's very elite. Or he or she, I suppose. It's kind of hard to tell. Feline swiftness. Like, it's another one of those characters that kind of has a little bit of everything. Absolutely gorgeous. This is going to be a character that people that like to paint are going to enjoy. if you're not somebody that likes freehand, this might not be the character for you. In saying that, they're kind of like half circles. Getting them neat is kind of not the point.
Just use the snow leopard paint. It's made by the same company that makes the Scotch tartan paint. You know, where you just paint it on and it's plaid. They make that for snow leopard.
The striped one. Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
One. Yeah. The only thing I don't like about them is that you have to buy them in the bundle with the long waits. It's really irritating. I just wish you could get it by itself. I feel sorry for people taking us seriously and can't see the grins on our faces.
And the last Bushido, we got Satu Sadao.
I reckon you're pretty much spot on the money with that pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
Yeah, I reckon you're pretty much straight on the money.
Sadao. I know it's Sadao. I know the first name, yeah, but yeah. This guy's again a very stereotypical, like, he's got the strong beard, the top knot, the rest of his head shaved, like...
He's the cold, unfeeling character that you think is a really mean person until about 2/3 of the way through the movie where you finally realise why he's been this way all along, and it's because he needed to be that way to bring out the secret that was deep within you or whatever.
And he's the nicest guy ever.
Yeah. He's not quite the Emperor from Mulan. He might potentially be the annoying guy that's always having a go at the leader, though. Who is the most irritating character potentially in Disney history. Quite deliberately. Day one. I don't know what my favourite of these releases are.
Shiho.
You reckon it's the Shiho?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Socks?
I'm gonna go with kind of like the leopard, actually.
I quite like the
Master
leopard as
Charlie.
well. Quite like the leopard as well. I think we might all have a different choice. Because I think my favourite's Hannah. It's just suitably creepy.
My favorite is Shiho, but Follow Closely by Kenshi.
He was on my potentials as well.
Yeah. He was on my... He's probably my number 2.
It's not my fault, guys, really.
It depends on how you look at him, because I still look at him as though the guy that's pretending to be innocent and then slices your head off. In cold blood while your back is turned. I am very quickly, if you open Hannah and then click on the Awoken tab, just because I realise there are some people that probably haven't seen the original box set, Joyless Smiles and Dark Eyes, this is the new themed box set for the faction, which is quite literally, it's a giant spider faction. And all of them are creepier. They are just as creepy, if not more creepy than Hannah is. It's all straight out of Japanese folklore.
These are as creepy as the Fox faction is beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's accidental. They're, yeah, very, very nice. I came very close to buying these during their original pre-order. I just didn't have the money at the time. So I just thought, like, there's always somebody that's probably listening for the first time or watching for the first time. I wanted to give you guys the chance to actually see what I was referring back to, so you don't have to find the original episode. And now I will finally move on.
Some of the best Northmen slash oh hell, what? They're UK. No.
Are you thinking of the original North and South tribes?
No. Like these are very Northman looking with the helmet shape.
True.
But it's there's a faction of a British it's a time period the armies, they wore the full like chain shirts with the leather. Like Richard the Eighth or something like that, or I can't remember.
So there's Celtic Britons. You're talking before that, though.
Maybe it's Celtic. I'm thinking. I don't know, but these look great. Like this is a very good historically
Pictish. Yeah, I don't know. The word is failing me. There's people screaming at us because this is something that should be very obvious, and it's failing me as well.
No, but the Northman description is accurate because we go to second image. Who is it? It's Beowulf.
Yeah, quite literally. How can they be looking at Beowulf? They can't sculpt Beowulf. Beowulf is public domain. That's why they get a new movie with them every 6 months. I'm exaggerating.
Yep.
But Beowulf has been public domain for a very long time.
It's well, I mean, it's one of the world's oldest poems, so I mean, yeah, there's no one that has rights to it. But then we got a Shield Maiden.
Yeah. Really nice Shield Maiden too, actually. I really like what they're doing there. So we have Jutish Thanes. So these are obviously meant to be Utish. That's what they're meant to be. Freyolf. So that's mounted and not mounted. I don't know what the F stands for. M is obviously mounted.
Foot and mounted.
Oh, yeah. I feel really dumb now. Thane's Attendant, which is nice. Venerable Shield Maiden. Vendel Era Heroine. But it's just really nice. The original version of this that I saw was in an article on Tabletop, and they were calling them saga appropriate STLs or something of that effect. Because I mean, it's literally a band that you could use in a game of Saga, which is a game that I've always been tempted by and not played.
Yeah. Beowulf, Thane's Attendant, and the Venerable Shield Maiden, all those helmets remind me of the Riders of Rohan from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, which is not accidental. That is what was borrowed. That's where that comes from, that style.
Yeah.
And yeah, like these are all like characters likely based on people that existed. I say likely because nobody's ever really been able to definitively proven it. But it's very much like Hercules, that is believed to be based on about 3 or 4 different people from history. No, they didn't really fight Cyclopses, but you get the point.
One of them is labeled as Beowulf, and he is the hero of one of the oldest stories known to man. So I mean, it's.
It doesn't mean that the story actually happened, or the poem actually happened, but most stories of those periods are based loosely on someone or something that actually happened. As opposed to, controversial opinion here, the historical story of 300, in my opinion, is a story that never happened. Because there's nothing about that screams history at all. It's all very fictional. Everybody in the story existed. We can prove that, but there's no way that story actually happened. Also, historically, they are the bad guys in that story. Telling it from their own perspective. Anyway, controversial opinion over.
History's told by the winners, so imagine how World War II history would be if the Allied forces didn't win.
To be fair, the story of Troy until about 15 years ago was believed to be fiction. But that's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying at the moment. There's also
a small company to talk about.
It's Sox's favorite company, actually. He loves playing their games.
He does, quite regularly.
Absolutely.
It's really frustrating because we like talking about the indie stuff, and Sox will just never shut up about Games Workshop.
True.
All right. Look, there's been quite a few things that they've shown over the last couple of weeks. I'm only looking at a couple of small stories here. The first is the Orc Wrecker Cruise from the upcoming Kill Team box set called Brutal and Cunning. I actually really like the look of these guys. Like, they're just... Like, this is a really cool looking faction. It feels very orcish.
Here's my controversial opinion.
Yep.
Orcs are going to look like orcs, and I'm over them regardless what you do to make them look cool. Everything's been so over-orced now.
I'm not entirely sure that is a controversial opinion. I mean, I love orcs, but I'll also be the first one to say that I think everybody else does them better than Games Workshop. I mean, I know that the Games Workshop orc is kind of iconic at this point. They tried reinventing them, and those 40k, like, third-party orc-looking things are horrible. The ones from, like, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the clan, whatever it was. Where they kind of looked like they were half Lord of the Rings and half 40k. But I think most third parties are doing better than that. Like, they're trying to keep up with everybody else, I think, at this point. I don't know. I'll also say this. I think that's arguably the worst looking squid I've ever seen them do. Squig, rather, not squid. Like, the whole point of the squig is meant to be the teeth and the jaw, right? And, I mean, I get the whole idea, like, squigs are a thing, but it's like they've taken away the one thing about a squig that's fun, is the massive teeth and jaw. I mean, it still has a massive mouth, but it's covered over by a rope and it's filled in with dynamite. If the dynamite was around it rather than inside of it, I think you'd have something more fun. I don't know. That's just me. Otherwise I like it. I mean, that George isn't wrong. Like, they do look the same as all the other orcs. Quite literally. It's like that. It's like they've released a skin that they're selling for $10 on the DLC shop.
Oh God, you just made me sick from saying that.
What, DLC?
Here's a $10 skin to make your thing look different, even though it's the exact same thing as everything else.
Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong about that comparison. I think that's a pretty fair comparison.
No, that's why it makes me sick.
Yeah. I think
this
next one deserves a little bit more credit. A, because people have been wanting to see something like this for about 15, 20 years. We are actually getting more rattlings. Now, yes, we've had rattlings before. We had them in a board game, the Black Library one. There was 2 rattling characters in that. But this is a full-on faction for Kill Team. So once again, Kill Team is the thing that's being used to bring in the factions that everybody's kind of wanted to see for a long time. These guys are basically halflings for 40k.
Base halflings.
It feels like this is the TT Combat. It feels like this is a copy of the TT Combat halflings.
I will say, I love the one dude that they have a larger image of towards the bottom of the page with his beer gut.
Oh, yeah. It's a really nice... the dog is awesome, and I kind of love the fact that it is quite literally just a dog and not an alien creature.
Oh my God, that looks like a French bulldog.
It does a little
Massive.
bit. I like that it's missing half an ear, too. If you open up the image in a separate window, you can actually probably see it a bit clearer. I want to say that these would fit into a Catachan army quite nicely, even though they're the wrong size.
Or a Votan army.
Yeah. Like they just would fit really, really, really nicely. I think this might be my favourite Kill Team release they've done in a long time.
I just noticed the general with the big gray grizzled beard and the red beret.
Oh
With
yeah,
his
with his
the
mug
things
of
that they,
coffee.
well, that too, but what's the thing that they wear on the boots so that like you put the boots on, you pull or you put your pants on, you pull the boots over the pants, and then you put the leather on to like like layer it so things can't get into your boots.
Oh, the shin guard type things, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he's wearing those too, and he's just like he's a halfling that's barefoot, like those serve no purpose.
Is it gaiters? Are they gaiters?
Gators, that's
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Socks really likes these. I can tell. By the
No,
fact
these
that
are-
I don't even think that he's looked at them yet.
I have, and I do have to agree. These ones are a pretty cool vibe.
What about the orcs? I mean, I get that they are probably peak of your I am bored. Or do they actually scratch your itch a little bit?
Orcs, not so much.
Yeah.
Nope.
Could you see yourself painting these? No, I'm not saying that you have to paint them.
No.
No, like the halflings, retlings.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I got too many other things on my shelf.
Ignore that. I didn't say that you were
I
going
know.
to paint them or that you had to. But it's very rare to get you to actually see something from Games Workshop that you'd be tempted by. Is this on that very small list?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Here we go. We got it here first. He said he's going to paint them. No, I'm kidding.
No, I didn't.
All right. And the last thing from Games Workshop is they're doing their Miniature of the Year voting competition again. And you can see by the look on Sox's face how excited he is to vote for this. I actually have voted on this already, ironically. I wasn't going to, but I did.
You voted for me, didn't you?
No, it's you're voting for one of their releases was the best thing they did this year. For me, this was the year that we got something I had been waiting 20 years for. So I kind of felt like I had it was something that I felt was very important. Ironically, I didn't actually vote for the creep. I actually voted for something else. I think I might be regretting that at this point because I really do love that Krutox rider. That's what I was going to vote for. In the end, I voted for Asterath the Grim, which is the guy with the axe in the October picture.
Vlad the Impaler.
Pretty much. The one that I was saying that if you have the resin version of that miniature, it falls apart if you look at it, because the axe is that brittle. It was another miniature that had desperately needed to be redone. I think this was a pretty strong year for Games Workshop.
I mean, I'm looking, with the exception of April, which is, very whimsical for all these other minis, and then you got the Ratlings in November. Like, all of these other minis are just so solid looking. Like, December's, it just has this very, with that metal skull helmet that just...
Yeah.
There's something about that. August,
July.
Obviously, yeah.
The Lion.
Yeah.
The Lion is probably one of their best releases in years.
The
Certainly
Lion?
better than... the Dark Angels promo.
That's not the Lion.
Isn't it?
No.
Oh, no, it's not. It's a helmet, not even I thought it was a bearded face for a second, but it's not.
Yeah,
Never mind.
no.
He was released this year, though, right?
I believe so. Yeah, why he's not... Oh, I've got the list up here. Right,
you can
click
on the vote now.
Yeah, I did. I've clicked on that, so...
Oops, I actually gave a preview of what's coming next.
It looks like the Lion is not on the list. Maybe he was last year. I would say the one I like the most that they have in this of the 12 images is September's. I don't know what that is, but it looks amazing.
Yeah. I want to say that's something Skaven from memory.
Like, who here's watched Pan's Labyrinth?
No, I haven't, but I need to watch it.
Oh.
Okay, so that looks like something straight out of a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there, 100%. I think this is a very strong year for Games Workshop.
Well, for Games Workshop to go a year without releasing a industry like amazing mini would be difficult because they've always got at least one that like trumps everyone else's stuff. Not to say,
I would agree with you, and I am someone that for a few years now have been saying that I do not think Games Workshop are the #1 miniature company in the world from a sculpting point of view. I'm not saying their miniatures are bad, but I am saying that I don't think they're the best. And I'm saying that I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, but they at least always have that one, like, groundbreaking one for the industry of, you know, how amazing it looks, so.
Games Workshop are very good at what they do. It's just, I think there are other people out there that are doing different things that I value more.
Socks, do you want to talk about WizKids?
Yeah, who's this company, WizKids?
WizKids are a company... Actually, I'm going to be quiet.
Right?
I'm going to be quiet for a second. Because I do have opinions on WizKids that I've said before. But let's talk about this first.
So yeah, I just saw this on my feed for through Facebook. It's called Star Trek Into the Unknown, which is a new tabletop miniature space combat, space exploration game that WizKids is putting out. It actually comes out later this year. So
Wait, it's coming out this year, not next year?
It's coming out this year. It was announced at Alliance Open, the Alliance Distributors convention last year.
Okay.
And it is coming out here in the next couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
There's something very interesting about this that I kind of want to raise. Who remembers the most recent Star Trek spaceship game? I believe it was Starfleet Battles? Or maybe it was Attack Wing.
It was Attack Wing.
Yeah. Wasn't that also WizKids? Is this just a repackage?
No, it's not.
So it's not just X-Wing redone, which was also Attack Wing redone?
No, it's not. So if you actually go to you click on the little pre-order, I'm going to show you some of the images, and what I want you to pull up is so this is set in the Dominion era, during the Deep Space Nine time
Which
frame.
I will say is probably the best point for them to actually put a game on this.
What I'm wanting to look at is if you go to the pre-order, hit the first down arrow, you'll see 3 little cards, ship cards.
Yep.
So each ship has their own stat board, and there are different crew sections. So when you build, I've been watching some previews on this, and so as you're building your fleet, not only are you building a number of ships within your fleet, but you're also getting Captain Picard or Cisco, or pick your crew member that you want to, and you'll assign them to different sections of the ship itself, and that's how you activate during the game. Is by their abilities that they have, and they're better at different positions in the ship card as well.
Interesting. So that is very Star Trek.
Yes, and as you're moving around in the game, your ship stats will change. So like if you want to go from green alert to yellow alert all the way up to red alert, your weapon changes, your weapon stats will change, your shield stats, your energy stats will change throughout the entire game. And so
before I say what I'm about to say, I want to acknowledge that I do realise that Star Trek Attack Wing came first.
Correct.
But the issue with the original Star Trek game was that it could quite literally have been anything. It didn't feel Star Trek at all. For all it really mattered, it could have been a World War II game. And I say that because it was essentially a rip-off of a World War I game. Because it was essentially a redo of the one with the Red Baron in it. That's been redone a few times.
Wings of War. Wings of Glory. I have that one.
Glory. Thank you, yes. This is genuinely doing something that feels very Star Trek.
There's
Yes.
one thing about this that does not fit, and I absolutely hate that they've selected it, and it has no place in this time frame of when Star Trek takes place, especially with the Dominion War.
Right.
The Stargazer ship, which is trying to read it, the Constellation class, the one with
Constellation
the 4 warp,
class.
yeah, the one with the 4 warp nacelles. That was Picard's first ship that he was captain of. That's an old, antiquated relic ship. There should have been like, I understand there are some constellations in the battle, JP, but there are way better options that fit more as far as the Federation to have in the Dominion War. You could have had some Excelsior classes. You could have had the Akira class. So many of them out there.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be Picard's ship, or is it just a Constellation class?
No. So the Enterprise is the main ship. So it's going to come with 2 large ships, one for each side.
Yeah.
The Federation is going to get 1 medium ship and 1 small ship, and then the Dominion is going to get 2 smaller ships. And so that's just what they have right now. They have plans, the crew cards themselves for the Federation. They also have alliances with other factions that'll be eventually released over time. So like they can help out with Klingon ships or whatever, other Romulan ships or whatever. And so some of these crews will interact with differently. And it's not just a combat game either. It's a game where you'll have little systems on the board, and you'll warp into the system. You can do boarding parties, you can do research stuff, but then obviously there's combat in the game if it ever comes to that as well. And so it's kind of a storytelling miniatures game where they actually have a campaign in the starter set as well. So,
and then I know we briefly talked about the socks, and I'm not trying to crap on this game because to me there's not enough Star Trek out there. But
there are
I feel like like Star Wars is easy because whatever point in time you look at, there's good guys and bad guys.
I think it's a little bit more simple than that. I actually think the Star Wars license lends itself to gaming easier. The problem with Star Trek is that it's not really about the battles. They happen, but it's not what the show's about.
Right, but what I'm saying, it's like you have the Jedi, you have the Sith, you have the Empire, you have the Rebels. It's just like there's that very good guy, bad guy dynamic. In Star Trek, well, you got the Federation, then you have Romulans, you have Klingons, you have Cardassians, you have the Dominion showing up. Then, holy crap, they went into the Delta Quadrant where you have the Borg. That's where they're at. The Kazon. Thank you, JP. I was trying to think Kazon. There's just too many different factions that it's
Isn't that a good thing for a miniature game?
Well, not for balance, because look at Games Workshop.
True.
If you got 2 sides you're trying to balance, that's way easier than trying to balance 15. Because I completely glossed over that, there's the Ferengi Alliance, they're their own little independent thing. There's the Orions, they don't hardly get mentioned.
Here's a question, because I haven't seen Deep Space Nine. I've never watched it. Where were the Ferengi loyalties at this point? Is this before or after they join the Federation? Because they do eventually join, right?
So they never officially joined during Deep Space Nine. Quark was the primary Ferengi, and his alliances were who's got the money. Towards the end, he realized that it was going to be better under the Federation, not the Dominion.
Okay, but it was more of a personal thing, not a... So that wasn't like where Worf was the character that helped bring them over. It was...
Yeah.
I'm just a Ferengi that doesn't belong here.
As I was going to mention, in Strange New World, the Gorn have become a much stronger presence in, the Star Trek lore and canon. So it's like, there's just so much out there. And as you said earlier at the beginning of my little rant here of, Star Trek has never been about the conflict. It's been about the exploration and resolving the conflict that occurs.
Yeah. I think that's what they're trying to do, because like I said, I've watched a few intro videos of how to play and stuff like that, and so I think they're trying to do that. They're trying to give you that aspect of you're going into these systems to explore, but conflict will arise occasionally in the game. I mean, each player will come in with kind of their own little mission set that they'll have set up for them, but then throughout the game things will change, and it may arise to conflict. It may arise to other exploration missions or stuff like that. So it'll be definitely interesting to see this game. I'm not totally sold on it, but
I'm not either, and there are reasons for that, which I might get into in a second. Here's the thing. I've always quite enjoyed Star Trek. I've never considered myself a Trekkie. Largely because, and I want to make very clear, I'm not teasing George when I say this, the whole conversation about that being the wrong ship, I still don't know that, despite the fact that he's just told me that. Because it's just not the side of Star Trek I get into. I don't care. I'm not saying it's wrong to care. I just don't care. I just like the show. I like specific parts of the show. I think I've touched on this before. I don't really enjoy the original as much as most people do. I did when I was a kid. After The Next Generation, I tried to go back to it a few years back, and I just struggled to get back into it.
Next Generation did such a good job of bringing Star Trek back that it ruined the original series for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's very much nostalgia goggles, I feel. And I'm not saying that liking it is wrong. I'm just acknowledging me as a Star Trek fan and what the issue is here. There's another side of this, and I'm not even talking about WizKids yet. Star Trek, notoriously over its lifetime, has been licensed so very, very poorly. There's been a lot of really bad quality toys released over its lifetime. As opposed to Star Wars that's almost notoriously had high quality. Because George Lucas was very particular.
It goes back to the Star Wars lends itself so much better to, there is active conflict. These are good guys. These are bad guys. Star Trek has never done that until Deep Space Nine with the Dominion War.
Well, I think the other issue was that Star Wars actively did that and quite literally created an industry.
Mm-hmm.
That licenses tried to use the Star Trek on to exploit. And essentially what they did for a long time was repackage old stuff and try to pretend it's a Star Wars toy.
Yeah.
As opposed to... And for those of you that are not really into the history of toys and stuff, and I realise we're not a toy channel, I'm not making this up. Star Wars quite literally started an industry. I'm not saying toys were invented by Star Wars, but the whole collector's market started with Star Trek toys. It started with Kenner. Sorry, isn't that what I said? Oh, did I say Star Trek?
You did say Star Trek there for them, but yes, Star Wars and Kenner. Yeah, that's absolutely
started. That's what brought He-Man around. That which in turn is what brought Transformers around. But all of this started with Star Wars. It's one of the reasons why it gets held up as that property. It's also probably why people moan and complain about it as frequently as they do. Yeah. I'm very interested to see where this goes, because this is the first miniature game since the board game that we saw earlier this year that feels very Star Trek, which was also a WizKids thing, I think. I could be wrong on that.
So WizKids owns the IP for Star Trek in terms of licensing.
WizKids, as far as a company is concerned, tends to aim at a budget audience. Generally speaking, this might be a little harsh, there tends to be two sides to WizKids. We're just trying to do something. and we're trying to do it as best we can. We're not trying to compete with Games Workshop, but we'll do the best with what we have. And this'll do. If they can be that first WizKids, like I feel they were with the board game. Now granted, not the best miniatures in the world. Not even close. But the game mechanics, from everything I've seen, appears to play extremely well. If that's what this becomes, I think they're going to make a mint. But if all they're doing is this'll be fine, then we'll have a problem. It's very black and white with WizKids. It's very rarely in the middle.
There's another thing that WizKids does really well, is they do make a very good looking mini for what they put into it, and then they send it out. Then they send it out pre-painted, quite well for that price as well.
Yeah, these are all pre-painted too. All the ships in the kit are all pre-painted. And another thing is, it's interesting that this is coming out, because what just got. I know this was in development over the last few years, but what wasn't in development?
Yeah.
That was huge in the market. Armada. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think it'll go as successful as Armada will. It'll be interesting to see if it'll fill that void of Armada. I know a lot of Star Wars guys are not Trekkie fans. I'm kind of one of the weirdos that likes both.
Same. Even if I don't consider myself a Trekkie, I would say same.
Yeah.
I will say this.
We're all in that same boat.
Yeah.
I suspect this may have been part of the reason why Atomic Mass Games decided not to invest any more heavily in it. I think they probably saw that, like, we could do this at this point, but somebody else is already 12 months in front of us. I don't think it's worth it. Let's just concentrate on what's already selling. Let's redo X-Wing or whatever.
That being said, I would love to see this expand and be able to see, Vorchaws and Nagvars and Birds of Prey.
I think we will eventually.
I want to see something that we won't see, and that's a board cube, because it's just going to be too big. Like, the board cube would be the size of the board cube in the original game. It would be stupid. There's no point.
Yeah, and this is played on a 3x3 board. So
so you can't have shit that big anyway.
Game.
Oh, that would be the board cube as a 3x3.
As the board itself. Yeah.
Which could be a fun mission. It's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. Like I said, the previous. I don't know if even calling it a board game is fair. I'm calling it a board game because it's kind of like one of those on the cusp things.
I would call it more board game because...
Well, it kind of feels Zombicide-ish, right?
You open the box, you have everything you need to play. It's a template movement system, where it only you can only move a certain way, a certain time. It's more board game-esque than war game-esque, I will argue.
Trim, glue, prime, paint.
Socks, look intimidatingly into the camera so we can laugh at you while you talk about your hobby. Look at how intimidating he is, folks.
I actually got something done this week.
I actually quite like that.
Yeah, so this.
It almost looks like that's the colour it started at, and you haven't actually painted anything yet. I know it isn't, but the coverage has been done really well.
Yeah, this is one of my Soulmate flyers. I'm getting ready to go back home to Utah for a couple of weeks. That's my big one. And so I got these all ready to go so I can take them with me and paint them all up while I'm gone, visiting family. Because other than sitting around at a table doing stuff, I can just sit there and listen and chat at the same time as painting. So that's what I did with my Imperium ships last time I was back home in Utah.
Yeah.
So I actually got something done. So shush all you.
Truth be told, I'm thinking I should try and do something similar while I'm down in Tassie, and that's just pick a hobby, like get as much of it ready to paint while I'm there, and then just pick the colours and take them down with me. Every time I do that, I don't touch it, and every time I don't do it, I end up regretting it.
yeah, so I've got like the 8 or 9 bottles that I'll be taking with me. That's kind of the ski. I know this is kind of washed out, but the green, it's actually a turquoise blue. Yes, these are my Stoltmates USB stick drives. No, they're not. They're a carrier deck. But that's kind of
that's an interesting joke there, Socks. I wonder where you heard that.
I wonder where to. So, but yeah, I'll be doing some. I'm looking forward to putting those finally, painting them up, putting them on their base because they're flyers, and I don't want to put them on their bases until after I painted them. So.
No, that's fair. What about yourself, George? What have you been up to?
Well, I placed an order with a vendor called Sun Cut Sun, where you can upload a drawing and they'll laser cut it out, power jet cut it out, whatever. And so I was going to get sheet metal inserts ordered for my organizer trays, and they showed up, and they are fantastic.
Tell us how successful this was, George. Tell us exactly why you're so proud of yourself.
I'm getting there. So here's the Ferris sheet that I ordered from Organizer, and then here's the sheet metal sheet that I ordered from Suncut Send.
Perfect, George. It's absolutely perfect.
And it's 0.1 mil difference in thickness, so this will embed no problem. But I didn't pay attention when I was ordering these, and so I actually ordered non-ferrous sheet metal.
Yeah, and we knew this, and this was laughing at him.
And then I got this little guy. This is the
seemed to have taken forever to arrive.
Well, no, it's the store anniversary mini.
But didn't you order that like 6 months ago?
No, we had to wait for the store to have its anniversary before the store could get it in.
Oh, okay.
So yes, we were made aware of it earlier this year. We could only pick it up from the store in Wyoming on its anniversary here within the last month because that's when the anniversary was.
Fair enough.
And then I cracked this open before we started recording, but I have finally received this.
About time.
Nice.
So I'm gonna get that cracked open and do a little unboxing. Oh, and I ordered this because I always struggle of paying attention where the mini is and keeping it in frame. So I ordered this, and I'm just gonna put the mini on it and let the mini spin on it, and I don't have to worry about moving the mini or keeping it in the frame of the camera.
Yeah, I've bought a couple of those over time too.
So, but yeah, super excited about that because it is still like my number one game that if I want to sit down and play, and just to have I think it's 15 more scenarios of content. Just the scenarios, and then I think 5 more gods to just the amount of content for it now is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and they're not finished.
So, they just launched a new Kickstarter for GameFound for season 5 essentially of it. So, and that'll have a giant Godzilla that's 50 centimeters tall or whatever.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
They're actually doing a scenario to where the big Godzilla and the big Cthulhu are one scenario and they're fighting.
Nice. That is a fun idea. I like that.
What you been up to, Bruce?
Well, so for those that have been listening for a while, some of you will know that I wasn't here last episode, and that was because I was away on a motorbiking weekend.
Gallivanting around.
Yeah, it was. I had an amazing time.
Entropy City LARPing.
Yes, that's what we call it.
I did hear that. So, Indian Motorcycle at Ballarat had organised a Southern Gathering. That's what they called it. And basically, it was a weekend where people that owned the motorcycles or people that were interested in motorcycles could kind of meet up in Ballarat. There was a couple of group rides. There was a big barbecue. There was food. There was it was a really good weekend. A little over 100 people were there was over 110 tickets sold. They sold out, and I think it was 110 tickets for the weekend. But there was about 80 to 90 bikes that were there. So because there were some people that were obviously partners and stuff. It was in a group that size, whether it be in biking or whether it be in a car type situation, you tend to get at least one or two morons, right? That just decide to be that person. We didn't have that weekend at all. That's extremely rare in
Bruce,
a group scenario.
You know the saying, if there's no weirdo in your group of friends, you're the
yes,
weirdo.
I do know the saying, but I'm not saying weirdo. I'm not talking about that.
There weren't any jerks or anything. Well, if you didn't see any, that means you... No, I'm kidding.
I'm talking about, like, the morons that are, like, there. I mean, am I saying that nobody sat there at the lights revving their engine? No, of course I'm not. It was a giant group of riders. Of course that will happen. I'm more talking about people being problems. It just didn't happen.
Yeah,
or if it did, I didn't see it.
I know what you're saying, Bruce. I'm just jabbing you in the ribs.
I know. I just want to make it clear. That doesn't mean, however, that I haven't been getting hobby done. Because, shockingly, I actually have. I haven't done anything this weekend. I will touch on as to why a bit later, because I'm not sure I want to go there at the moment. I don't want to cry. Okay. About a year and a half ago, about 2 years ago, I talked about how that following year I was going to make a point of trying to get back into Infinity and actually playing Infinity. I did a couple of unboxings. It was all going to happen. And then I started development on Entropy City instead, and I never actually did it. Now, I'm still working on Entropy City, that hasn't changed. But I have actually started painting some of that stuff that I bought and unboxed. And I am actually finally going to play some Infinity. I'm going to have to turn my light on because showing stuff on camera while I'm set up like this doesn't tend to work very well. So let's do that. So, we're starting off with the one that I had actually unboxed. This is, to date, still, I think, one of my favourite tags. This is a CO cast miniature. Focus, you stupid thing. It was focusing fine. Oh, there we go. So this is a CO cast miniature. I was maybe one of the only people in the world at the time that received this and had absolutely no problem with their CO cast whatsoever. Obviously I still need to highlight stuff and that at this stage, but this is just speed paint over a very light coloured... I didn't even slap chop this, I literally just speed painted it, just to get it started. Because my intention was that I will actually paint this up more naturally as I go. Really happy with the baseline on this. I decided, rather than sticking with red and black, that I wanted to do more of a grey so that you did still see a lot more of the details. I still need to, like the mines and stuff that's on his shoulders there, that aren't showing up very well. I still need to paint those up to be mines and not just bumps of purple. But then I started watching videos by a creator that I really like called Don Serratos. He's very, very good.
Yeah.
And recently, he started talking about this thing that he is calling double slap chop. Now, granted, I get it. Some people are sick of hearing about slap chop because all it is zenithial highlighting underneath your contrast/speed paint, and it shows up more detail because that's what zenithial lighting will do. It is actually a technique that works really well, though, which is why people talk about it all. I think people just get annoyed because it's not a new thing. It's just something somebody decided to label, and then I got annoyed because I'd been doing it myself for about 6 months, and I never even thought to share what I was doing, despite the fact that I didn't really see anybody else doing it at the time. The thought didn't occur to me, and then it's like, I'm an idiot. I could be with the one with all of this attention. Oh, what a shame.
Thank
Anyway.
God you aren't. I mean, what?
So he's doing this with his new thing that, well, I don't know if he actually started. I believe he did. But he's calling it double slap chop. And so basically what you're doing is you start with a darker colour than you want to end up with. And you do it the traditional way. So you slap chop it and you put the darker colour on. Bob's your uncle. But once it's dry, you then dry brush over with white again. And then you go over with the colour that you actually want. It gives a much more in-depth miniature.
From what I've seen of it, it gives you more detail without having to go through the headache of painting detail.
Pretty much. Why is my... This was working with us earlier, Socks. So much better than it is now.
It's because you're under pressure.
So, the detail in this does show up a lot deeper than what it does with the previous one. If I try... Helps if I hold it the right way around. Don't drop it. But there's more depth in this one than there is this one. Because I still have to highlight this one up and stuff, right? And I will do with this one as well. The technique has some legs. In a 40k setting in particular, I think is where this would shine, because it'll actually do some of your weathering for you if you do it properly. I've seen it done with a Space Marine where rather than the darker blue and a lighter blue, he starts with a brown and then goes over the top of it with a blue. And then it kind of looks like some of that is like covering over rust and stuff and shading, and it looks quite nice. It's a technique that I think actually has quite a few legs. And I've said that in our Patreon chat a couple of times. I've said it elsewhere a couple of times. This is a technique I think that has legs. And what I mean by that is, I think this one may actually stick around. At the end of the day, all this is underpainting. Ironically, Don Cerratos has got abused over this technique because it's not real painting. I have bad news for you guys. It is real painting. Painting is painting. Airbrushes are not cheating either. It's just painting. It's okay. You don't have to paint the same way as everybody else does if you don't like it. But if you want to abuse somebody over the fact that they're doing a different technique than what you approve of, guess who the problem is? Because it's not them. I don't mind calling people out. They can all go to hell. So yeah, I've actually been painting. Honestly, for the first, from a hobby perspective, I haven't really said this out loud much, but I don't think it will surprise either of you when I say this hasn't been my year for hobby. Like, I've really struggled this year. When Socks was talking last year about burnout, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of there at the moment as well. I've really struggled with that this year. Like my crew at the beginning of the April or whenever it was, still extremely proud of these, but no, this project was never finished.
Yeah.
Part of that is because I realised, although I'm very proud of the fact that I brought it, I'm very proud of what I've done, I quickly realised that, you know what, I don't actually want to play full-on 40k. Combat Patrol, 100%. And I actually have bought something I need for that, if I want to play Combat Patrol, which I will unbox at some point. But I don't want to play full-on 40k. And then that was an excuse to go to the next project. I went back to Entropy City, for obvious reasons. Yeah. Most of my hobby is Entropy City. Well, that was also a lovely distraction for a while, which is...
Your Smurfs?
My Smurfs are about 95% complete at this stage. I need to finish the Badger, and I'm putting that off because the Badger is actually something I've kind of been overthinking a bit. And there is one here that I haven't touched at all, and that's because I want to try and paint this on camera, if I can.
Also, to be fair to you, Bruce, you also did have a life event that did prevent you from doing anything too, which probably didn't help your mindset of getting stuff done.
No. I'm probably going to talk about this in one of my things that I'll talk about in the next episode, which we'll discuss a little bit later. There's been a few things. I've also lost somebody very close to me this week as well. It's honestly pretty lucky that I'm here. Not because, I'm not being dark. There was a point where I was considering calling in and saying I'm not coming. I was very much not in the right mindset for it.
Personal time.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I realised how it sounded after I said it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Explicitly saying he was looking at taking personal time.
Yeah.
We all need it occasionally.
Yeah.
We do.
I'd say let's move on to.
Well, real quick before you push a button.
No,
I'm not finished. I wasn't here last episode.
Go ahead, Bruce. I'll let you finish.
I have actually played another game of Cthulhu Met Death May Die. We lost again. In fact, we got humiliated in episode 5. It was the one where you've got to try and get all of the two families onto the boat and get them to go away.
Oh, yeah.
And the god turned up where we had one person on the boat. And then it wasn't so much a matter of if we would lose, it was how far we could get before we died. We got nowhere, we just didn't fail until it took a long time for us to fail that mission. I think in the end we got 3 people on the boat. But I don't even, we should have died 4 rounds before we did. 4 turns before we did.
Yeah, it's the speed at which the losing that game can escalate is mind blowing.
Well, this is in that particular mission. We should have been gone, but we managed to continue just scraping in for a very long time, just surviving, because they just kept on rolling poorly, and we rolled well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the last game Sam and I played of that. It was from the season 2 box. I think it was episode 3, and we had a pretty good handle on it. We were going through and we were completing the tasks. We were going through doing the thing, and we interrupted the ritual, and yeah, it just went so bad so quickly when we interrupted the ritual. And
our success rate has been suspiciously higher than it should have been for a lot of our games, and we kind of there was a couple of things that we were doing wrong, but not a lot, and I think that's why this one failed so spectacularly, because we were doing everything right this time and everything caught up. I still think we should have failed a lot sooner than we did, but anyway. So some of the stuff I was just showing off there was stuff that I bought for a while, but I may have bought some stuff as well.
No, you would never.
What's that? We don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is, Socks. You're the only one on the planet. So I
do.
I bought the Nomads action pack that was released a couple of years back. This is slap chopped as well. That is actually far closer to completion than the other ones were. I've also gotten this guy done. I don't know why I'm even trying to show these off at this point. It's clearly not working. That one I'm really happy with how that gun's turned out. The yellow turned out really nicely. I will still say this: speed paint / contrast is a godsend to painting yellow. Painting yellow the traditional way, I don't understand why people still do it. It's just not worth it. So this is something I bought because a lot of my old Nomad miniatures are missing pieces. They've gotten damaged over time, and every time I'm like, yeah, but because I've had them for that long and they've come in and out of storage that many times and never been played, that I've kind of just lost faith with them over time. And it's like, yeah, so I bought some new stuff to add to it, so I kind of have a full painted stuff, or at least it will be by the time I'm finished. This was an impulse buy, but not as much as the next thing. Because I bought this, which is a completely different army, because So in Australia, this normally sells for anywhere between 140 and 160 bucks, depending on how much the store wants to rip you off. Just because we all know what third parties are like, some third parties throw money on it so that they can try and trick you into spending more than you should. I picked this up for, I think it was 87 bucks. It was a steal. Ben, who tried to turn around in our chat and tell me that I got ripped off and I should have gone to Combat Company, you are wrong. A, they didn't have it in stock, and B, it was $60 more expensive at Combat Company. I checked. That's why I bought it. The only reason I bought this is because it was very cheap. I suspect that they put the wrong price on this and thought it was a different box. Either that or they were clearing it out for some reason, and I took advantage. So I have opened it. I may actually, I don't know, if people are interested, I might do an unboxing on it, but there's plenty of, like, that's not new. That's like a year and a half old at this point. So I have actually got some stuff done. Really trying to get as much done as I could. Like, this wasn't my week. Like I said, I lost a friend this week, so my mind has been very much elsewhere. But I have actually had some inspiration, so I've tried to do it while I had it. My plan... I've also got a lot of worms painted, but I'm not digging that box out again. I have about a third of the box of the minis left. That I've got 3 trays done, and I've got like a tray and a half of those worms miniatures left. So there's like somewhere there's 12 or 13 or something that I haven't shown on the stream at this stage. What I might do with that is I may actually like show them off in a video at some point that I'll record next year as well, if people want to see it, rather than, because I'm not having fun with my lighting over here.
So,
yeah.
Real quick question for you, Bruce. Now that you got a second game under your belt, do you understand my obsession with that game now, though?
Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, the Cthulhu.
Sorry, Cthulhu, but Death May Die. I understood that the very first time I played it. Like, I will say this: it is still just a reskin of Zombicide. Like, it is. It's probably the one they've changed the most. He-Man has less changes in it than Cthulhu Death May Die does. And this isn't necessarily a criticism. If you have a game that works and can be reskinned, tweaked to feel like it belongs elsewhere, you would be stupid not to do that. It's quite literally how the industry works. We were talking just earlier about Star Trek and Star Wars essentially being the same game. Like, they were quite literally the same game. It wasn't even hidden. They had the same name essentially. Because you can't copyright mechanics. You're not allowed to. You can't copyright a game mechanic.
Yeah.
Technically, you can.
Apparently, you can't.
Because Magic the Gathering, for the longest time, had the tap trademarked.
Yeah, but that was the word, not the action.
Well, but it was so intertwined that other game companies had to... Oh, JP saying trademark, not copyright. Fair enough. Oh, we'll go.
Actually, that might be a good point.
Yeah. Socks, you said you had one more thing you wanted to throw out here?
So, on our little Christmas special that we'll be doing, I already recorded my video, but my goal, hopefully as school is winding down, I'm not going to have as many papers next 4 months or so of school, from what I've been told. So I'm hoping to do a hobby at least once a week myself.
Ooh.
So
nice.
So hopefully I'll have more stuff on the channel to show as we're progressing throughout the year.
Talk nerdy to me.
Metal needs to die and go away.
All right.
I'm done.
So,
I agree.
Why do I feel like I have to defend metal when I'm the one that hates it the most out of all three of us?
I hate it significantly more than you do, so...
I doubt that. Okay, so, the actual topic that I've raised here, just for the record, was the future of miniatures. Or, sorry, the future of miniature materials. Now, this has kind of come from a couple of different places. For starters, 2 years ago, there was a massive shortage on metal. And we kind of said, this is probably the death knell of metal, it's not going to recover. That did not end up happening because things kind of shifted and the price came back down again. However, I think it's still worth remembering that is eventually going to happen. Metal will, there is no way around this, metal miniatures will eventually get to the point where they're not feasible as a product. Like, you can't make them as cheaply now as you could before. And the downsides of metal, and there are some, even if you don't like to admit it, we all obviously have a different opinion than you. The downsides of metal, although yes, they last longer, you can strip them a lot easier, etc., etc. But the downsides of they don't keep the paint, the paint will flake off very easily, they're harder to protect, counteracts that quite a bit. It's not really my point, though. It's more that, like, there are so much other things. Like, we've got metal, we've got resin, we've got plastic. Unfortunately, we still have Restic, and I actually think Restic is probably going to make a comeback at some point. I know nobody's really using it, but there's a reason why it was popular at one point, and I suspect that it is going to make a comeback, unfortunately. Everybody for the last 10 to 15 years has been shouting about how 3D printing is going to be the death of miniature companies. Well, I just don't believe that's going to happen, but I think there's a discussion to be had there as well. COcast, as much as I know that there are a lot of people that don't like it, I still think has a very strong place in the industry. I think the issue is not COcast, it's the companies that's using it in a lot of cases. Night models. The problem is with certain companies, night models, not with the actual material itself.
So, and I agree with you, and I will again say metal needs to go away in this hobby. It is an ancient, antiquated material.
It is.
And my hatred for it comes from a Games Workshop Dreadnought coming free of its storage and destroying my entire army, like, because it's just a giant ball of
So
pewter.
heavy.
Yeah. Large companies will never be killed / affected by resin and 3D printing because, one, they're either doing resin themselves. TT Combat, Forge World, they're still doing resin.
Yeah.
Those companies, those companies also have the resources. TT Combat has expanded on Drop Fleet. Games Workshop, obviously. Nothing is going to beat injection molded plastic, period. So, I don't
think nothing's going to be injection molded plastic. It already is. Or are you saying that part of the industry is going to die?
No, that's not going to die. I don't think anything's going to trump that.
I think you misspoke then.
As long as those companies are large enough and they can do injection molded plastic, they're not going to be. They're never going to be affected by it. You get too good a detail. It's way more durable than resin. It's easy to box and ship.
It's expensive to set up, but once it's set up, it's a lot more. It's a lot easier to maintain.
Yeah.
The problem is the initial investment. Most companies can't afford it.
Yeah, the initial tooling of the mold is thousands upon thousands of dollars. But then once you have that, the more you are able to mold with it, the more you're able to spread that cost out. 3D printing and resin 3D printing specifically, is going to do a huge thing to the market as far as it's going to open up third-party miniatures so much more. My Sergeant Slaughter I got, that's a beautiful 3D print. And as long as you're going to have people that are talented to do their own designs, do their own sculpts, if they can make that initial investment of, say, $500 and get a 3D printer, they're going to be able to start making that money back very quickly if they have the models and minis that people want.
Yeah.
Thus expanding their operation, thus more time in design, more printers, better printers. Are they ever going to do their own molds to do plastic injection? Probably not. But there's that percent that maybe they will. Maybe they will stumble across something, create their own game, and just be able to, be that percent that does go beyond that. But metal just needs to die. And as far as the rustics and the Siocast, like they'll come and go again. Like I don't think as long as you have Games Workshop doing plastic, the second place is always going to be resin, and after that, everyone else is going to fight to stay alive or go away.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the future of the industry, the big question mark at this stage, and I'm saying it's a question mark, and I know that not everybody's going to like that, is whether the industry ever goes completely mainstream. The reason I say not a lot of people are going to like that is because there's a lot of people that would like to believe it already is mainstream. Because the terrifying thing that a lot of people in our industry don't like is that it's far more niche than you think it is. Mm-hmm. The industry itself is actually minuscule. It's nowhere near as big and mainstream as you think it is. There are other people, there are people out there that do know this and fight desperately to stop it from going mainstream. Ask any female creator publicly out there. They will be able to give you... We've covered some of these stories about the disgusting abuse that they get just because how dare they be in my hobby. Now, I'm saying my in the general way, describing what they're saying. I'm not the sort of person that would say this. I want as many people in this hobby as possible. I want it more diverse. Oh my god, he said diverse. How woke. More people in this hobby means more success for the industry. The biggest issue this industry has right now is the 70 to 80% monopoly that Games Workshop has. The only way that gets better or changes is if more people get interested.
Well, and I'm going to throw this out here too, Bruce, because I've kind of veered off of the path of the true wargamer, and I've really gotten way more into the board game side of the hobby, so to speak. Just because
I think that's probably closer to where the future's going, honestly.
Well, it's more of a self-contained thing. Like, I've got a box here. I can take that box and go play a bunch of games with a bunch of people. That's all it needs is that one box. And I think that's a very telling direction of the industry. Mm-hmm. Because, while Games Workshop is huge, they are publicly traded, it is still a very small market. Versus, if you look at what board game companies... Well, I'm not going to say Hasbro because that's...
Not Hasbro. Asmodee.
Yeah.
Days of Wonder.
Or even CMON. They have become such a big part of the board game industry that they have, I would say, started to eclipse what people know as board games. When you can go...
Yeah, but who owns them, George? Because at the end of the day, Sox is actually still right here. Asmodee, Asmodee owns a large part of them. I don't know if they own them exclusively.
Asmodee is the largest board game.
Stockholder,
board game.
Yeah, but when 15 years ago, you discover a game called Settlers of Catan that you've never heard of before, you're like, oh my god, this is the most amazing game ever. And then you fast forward, and it's sitting on the shelves at Walmart and Target. That shows how much, because what did you see at those stores? You saw, Monopoly, the garbage basic games that
turned everybody off the industry.
That they're not really fun. Like back in the 80s, that's what we had, and they were fun.
Well, it's because they were only designed for kids, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But now with it, everything has grown so much, like, that's going to, I think, determine the future of what we see on the wargaming side, too, is, all these large companies are, they're doing plastic. These companies are going to be the plastic companies for these other companies because they've got all the infrastructure set up. So, and like I said, 3D printing and resin is not going to go anywhere. I think if anything, that's going to be the biggest gorilla of the industry because anyone can do it.
Yeah.
You've got a resin 3D printer, for a couple $100. So, I mean, there's no reason why you can't get a CAD software, design your own thing, and sell a mini at $10.
I think when it comes to the industry, it's not so much 3D printing itself that's going to be the big game changer. Let's pretend for a moment, I threw the big question mark out there earlier, right? Let's just say that it does happen. The industry goes to the point where board games went 10 years ago. It becomes mainstream.
Yep.
It's kind of felt like we've been on the cusp of that for a long time, and it's just not quite happened, right? Let's pretend that happens. From an indie point of view, because yes, initially that means that Games Workshop makes even more money again because Games Workshop makes all of its money from the people that are getting into the hobby for the first time. And then people go off elsewhere at Games Workshop. It's not so much that they don't care, it's just that that's not their focus of the industry. They make money from the funnel, not the niche. From an indie point of view, I think the future is largely, not exclusively, largely going to come from print on demand. One of the biggest problems that an indie will have, yes, there are some indies that have the size to have a big warehouse. I'm not saying that that's going to change. But for someone if I released Entropy City tomorrow, it's not ready, but if I did, the big problem for me is that I'm someone that lives in a 2-bedroom unit. I don't have a warehouse. I don't have a shipping. These are all problems that I have to solve, right? If I set everything up as a print on demand, then I set somebody up that prints out the rule books when they get ordered.
Yep.
Or they order the PDF, whichever one. Either way, I don't have to keep them in storage and then post them off. It becomes an issue that I don't have to fix. You can quite literally do that with printing farms on miniatures as well, or you can set up a farm of your own. From a small person trying to start a business, that's where the big change is going to be future-wise.
This just occurred to me too, Bruce. How long has 3D printing been prevalent and readily accessible for the hobby?
You could make arguments that it's been a decade, but I think that's an exaggeration. 3D printing has been around for longer than that, but accessible is where the question mark is.
Right. So,
from a miniatures point of view, I would say maybe 5 years.
So, and before that, that's why metal, everything was done in metal because that's what was accessible. You had a mold, you poured metal into it, boom, you were done. Then someone discovered resin. And that became a new standard because, and while this is all going on in this very small hobby, because at that point, this hobby is so minuscule, it's ridiculous. You have, your Mattels, your Hasbros, your Kenners, doing injection molding plastic, making action figures and toys.
Yep.
Right? And then Games Workshop finally gets to the size to where they have the financial ability to do their own plastic stuff.
Yep.
What's to say in 10 years from now? Because car company, Koenigsegg, they invented 3D printing with titanium to make a turbo to the precision that they needed for their hypercar.
That's
what's to say in 5 years metal 3D printing won't be to the point to where you could afford to pay someone to 3D print you an injection mold for plastics for Entropy City.
Actually, here's a point. Let's go back to metal for a second. I'm going to completely argue against a huge point that we just made. Because like all three of us, we don't like using metal miniatures, right? Like,
Yep.
there's no secret there. Like,
Yep.
generally speaking, we're not huge fans of them. What would you two say is the largest threat to the industry right now? Because I know what's in my head, but I don't think it's what most people are thinking of. Because it's not that guy, I'll tell you that.
Availability of petroleum worldwide for everything that we use it for.
Fair argument. Sox, do you have any thoughts?
I'm going to go put my logistical hat on here.
Yep.
It's the supply chain management of resources and shipping.
Yep.
Getting those resources around the world.
Very strong point. For me, one of the loudest voices out there right now, ignore the fact of whether everybody listens to them or not, one of the largest things that most people are going on about at the moment is waste.
Yeah.
Resin notoriously creates a ton of waste. To the point where TT Combat made a whole big Kickstarter out of recycling it in a way that nobody else had thought of doing before. Because once you cast in resin, you can't... It's a chemical reaction that you can't reverse. You can't with hard plastic either. If that gets... You can with CO cast, which is one of the good things about it, right? You can then grind it back up and use it again. The strength of metal is that metal has no waste. All of it can be remelted and used again.
Yeah, true. That's true.
That is the reason why I don't think metal will ever go away. I do, however, think that the price will eventually get to the point where it's like, well, if you want this, you're just going to have to pay for it. Because the other issue with metal is that those that do love metal will never sell their stuff. They will never let anybody have it.
Yeah.
Because how dare you try to take it away from, like... I don't blame them, honestly. There's nothing wrong with being a collector. But from that point of view, and the reason I'm saying this now and not 5-10 minutes ago is I hadn't thought of this at the time. Like, waste is a significant problem. We're kind of lucky in this hobby space, just like we're lucky in the toy industry. That side of the community hasn't really turned their heads to look at them yet.
Yeah.
The toy industry on a couple of occasions have tried to answer with different packaging options, which did not get accepted by the fans very well. But they were also kind of half doing that on their own back and using it as an excuse to save money, as opposed to answering a concern that the people generally had.
Sure.
I think it's pretty fair to say that it's only a matter of time before those voices start looking at this industry as well. Because a lot of that community will look at this like, this isn't something that's needed. It's just a fun thing. It needs to be smarter about business, right?
And I did touch on bring up that subject a while ago, specifically with my tree guys for my Sylvaneth.
Yeah.
You buy the Tree Lord box. There's 4 sprues in it. You use 2 of them to build 1 mini. The other 2 are waste.
Yep.
So.
And whilst I understand the point of everybody having pieces, everybody loves to have a bits box. When are you ever going to use Sylvaneth bits in something else? Like, some people will. Some people are an insane amount of skill, right?
Yep.
I'm not that person. I'm not saying that you're not, but I would argue that if you were that person, you wouldn't have had that conversation 6 months ago. So, I mean, that's where this conversation kind of... The idea for this conversation came from. I can't think of the channel name, but Uncle Adam is what he calls himself online. He's one of the big miniature creators. Had a video that he put out on Friday of 3D printing is the future of miniature games. And whilst I don't agree with the idea of that they are eventually going to kill Games Workshop, they are eventually going to take over the industry, that's also not what he said. But he did kind of touch on the whole print and demand thing, and I felt like he had a genuine point there, which is why I kind of repeated in my own words some of the ideas he had. I don't agree with everything he said, but I think it's going to be a big changer in the industry. Because print-on-demand stuff will make a lot of stuff easier to access. There's already companies out there doing the whole, we've created a war game, you don't have to buy anything, you can just print them.
Yeah.
Another subject I'd love to touch on at some point is the whole miniatures agnostic thing, right? Because we all have miniatures we don't use, and you can just pick a rule set and use them in whatever the hell you want. Osprey Publishing literally make money from this. Hand over foot. Publishing more rule sets than anybody is ever going to play. Like, everybody thinks Frostgrave, everybody these are all things that have kind of come to use whatever you want. We're not going to make miniatures, this is not our problem. Yes, you can buy Frostgrave miniatures, but that's not the same conversation.
Well, it's like the same concept of, there's the Cthulhu, D20 system.
Yeah.
Go buy Death May Die. You don't need to buy a single miniature for the D20 system because, you've got a board game and you use all those in the regular game or the D20 game. So, yeah.
100%.
So
I think the board games taking off and leading to your CMONs and stuff of the world is probably a bigger threat to the industry than 3D printing ever will be. Because I suspect, because we've already seen it, that it's taken the board game scene over, more or less, at this stage. It's also taken a lot of people out of the hobby because it's easier. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also where, this mainstream audience that we were supposed to be, most of that mainstream audience that we haven't captured have actually gone here. And I think largely, personally, again, I'd love for this to go mainstream. It only leads to better things. Ironically, it probably actually leads to better prices because there's more stuff being sold, therefore everything comes down.
Yep.
But if it never happens, that's probably why. Because mainstream have an easier thing to buy that arguably they can do more with.
Tournaments, demos, conventions, that kind of stuff.
Alright, we touched on this earlier. I am skipping ahead though, because I just made that comment. Salute is coming up, it's on the 12th of April. It will again be held at the London Excel Centre. So this is 12th of April next year, because, it's already past this year. We're in December now, for those not paying attention. But, let's go back to the start. There is a miniature painting draft happening at the gaming arena. Oh, I didn't put the date down. I forgot what date this was. I want to say it's next week. It is... Yes, it's 15th of December. Now, first and foremost, I'm very upset because this has been organised on a date that I can't attend because I'm literally not in the state. I'm very upset. That's not fair. Okay, it's $25. Starts at 11 people. Sorry, it starts at 11 a.m. So there's 5 people per pod. Do both of you understand how Magic the Gathering drafts work?
Yes.
Yep. So basically the way this works, we and 2 friends, so it's us 3, it's JP, and let's say Shay is involved as well. Each of us gets 5 paints. We will pick 1 paint from that 5 and then pass it on to the next person. And so then Socks will get to pick one of the 4 that's left, and then he passes it on to George, and this all happens until everybody ends up with 5 paints. And that's what you have to paint your miniature with. And then basically it's the best person wins. I'm not saying this is a new idea. I am, however, saying it's the first time I've ever heard of this being done. And I love this idea and I desperately want to try it. So I hope that this is a really successful event because I want to do this next time. I don't enjoy Magic the Gathering drafts because it only makes it doesn't do well with my head. I go into a panic state. I just can't handle it. It's just a personal thing. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's not for me. This pushes pretty much every button I think I've got. It's everything I like about the idea of a draft without any of the panic, if that makes sense. I think the idea is that I get all of the blues, Sox gets all of the greens, and George gets all of the reds, etc. I could be wrong. If that's how if it was being organised by me, that's how I would do it. But I guess we'll find out. Moving on, CanCon from the 25th till the 27th of January. Once again, it takes place at the Epic Exhibition Centre in Canberra. That is the capital city in Australia, for those of you that don't know. Head along. Lots of lovely tournaments, including a Dropfleet Commander version 2 tournament is happening. I believe it's on the Saturday. It's 1,500 points off the top of my head. I need to update the information on this. It actually recently sold out, and they expanded it to get more places. So the good thing about this is that we have a very strong audience for Dropfleet Commander that's actively going to a tournament that's being run. So, hey, TT Combat, congratulations, it's working. Because of all of the places where you would expect it to struggle, Australia's probably the top of that list, because we're so far away, and we have no access to the game unless we ship it from overseas. So, Games Workshop, it's TT Combat. This should be a very positive sign for you. Because, like I said, for us to buy it locally is very difficult. So you would expect that it's probably not going very well over here. It's literally sold out and they had to sell more tickets. So, that should be a very positive sign. Dropfleet Commander painting competition. Michelle tried to blame us for this. He tried to blame us for the fact that Drop Squad Commander got delayed. The reason it got delayed is because Dropfleet took too long to get out. And I don't care. I'm still going to call it Drop Squad forever, because that's what it's called. It's not my fault that they've accidentally put the wrong name on so many things, and every box that they've designed, and everything. Like, it's very clearly called Drop Squad Commander, not Strike Team. They just accidentally type it wrong on everything that they've ever done. I'm sure there's more stuff out there. If you've got an event that you want us to talk about, let us know.
Valhalla Hobby is our sponsor, but they're also a great store that you can find online at valhalla.com. ValhallaHobbies.com, sorry. And not only do they sell your mainstream stuff, but they sell your smaller niche games. That's where you can find Dystopian Wars. They're going to have Armor Clash. They sell Bushido. They sell Conquest. They sell whole sorts of stuff. And they are a great little store and a great sponsor. If you use the code TABLED, you can get 5% off on your first time order. So,
thanks. JP, yes, you're right. Tabletop Minions is who I was thinking of. And JP thinks that they should do that at Adepticon. I agree. Of all places, that's probably the event where you would make a lot of money from an idea like this.
People can find us at patreon.com/gettingtable. For $2 a month, you can become a Patreon, listen to the episode live, and get early access when we do put out video episodes. And this includes unboxings and anything else we do. Of course, our website is gettingtable.com. That is because of Patreons and our sponsors. Again, thank you for liking and sponsoring this podcast. Most of the social media where we post everything, that's going to be on facebook.com/gettingtabled. You can, of course, find the video edition of this on YouTube at youtube.com/gettingtabled. Please give us a like, subscribe there. You want us to know about anything, tournaments, questions, something really cool you saw, you can email that to us at gettingtabled@gmail.com. X, Twitter, Instagram, Blusky, that's all at Getting Tabled. Jason the Bruce has got his Twitch, twitch.tv/Jason the Bruce. And then you can also find him over on Toy Reel, which is youtube.com/toyreel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matyas at soundimage.org.
thing.